All right. All right. All right. All right. We are live. Am I sounding okay, everybody? I mean, I know I sound fantastic all the time, but volume wise, is it too high, too low? How are we feeling? How are we doing? This is the homie right here. Rarely catch these live. Super excited. I want you to know, Scott, that when I watch your videos, I let the ad revenue or ads play for the revenue. You're welcome. Everybody, give it up for George. He's holding it down. That is what a true homie does. Go take a pee break while the ads are on, even if it's a 9-minute ad. How is everybody doing today? I hope you guys are just doing fantastic. Welcome to the late night Wednesday stream from here on out. All of my regular streams are going to be somewhere between 4 and 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time normally. Usually 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's midday for me. I like that time slot. That's when we can get the most people in here. But as a special thank you to my Amera bros who actually have jobs and need to work during the day, you get this Wednesday live stream all for you. And you guys can give a special thanks to Tyler. He is the one who I basically talked to about this and made sure that this happened. So everybody give it up for Tyler. Tyler, if you're here, thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Let me see where you guys are from. You know I love to see this. Let's see. Oklahoma in the house. Powell River, BC. Beautiful place. Cambodia, Pakistan, Rio de Janeiro, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. That's where my grandparents are from. Let's go. Dallas, Texas. That's where my parents are right now. San Antonio. It's like a worse Dallas, but that's what's up. Sydney, Australia. Beautiful. York, Pennsylvania. Beautiful. Thank you, MT, so much for your super sticker, brother. I appreciate you so much. I'm just letting everybody get in here who wants to get in here. Oh, I forgot I have to retweet my live stream. Oh, we got a lot to talk about, guys. The map is changing so fast. It's just rapidly changing. And I was missing stuff all day, and it's crazy. We haven't seen it like this ever. Things are changing very quick, and the live streams are just going to get more and more interesting. So, love from Ireland, London, England. Hope you're feeling better, Scott. I haven't felt bad in days, guys, but thank you so much. I am feeling fantastic. Alabama, you guys are awesome. Ontario, Toronto, North Carolina, Jordan, Middle East, Beirut, London, Lebanon, sorry, Japan, Ireland. Awesome, guys. Mega lag spike. Is everything okay? Huh? Is everything good? Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. 144p. Did the stream just drop off for a second? Okay. All right, guys. I think that is pretty much everybody. So before we get into this, I'm changing up my Patreon a little bit. I've tried to record those demonetized videos. I just don't have the passion for them anymore. The combat footage isn't quite the same. Something's kind of changed. They come in different waves, and I don't know. I didn't enjoy. I recorded that video 3 times. I tried to do it again today, and went back and listened to it, and it just wasn't entertaining at all. So I'm not going to put that up anymore. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get more interviews and bro chats. So that's going to be what I'm going to do for my Patreon. I think that's a little bit more entertaining, keep you guys more interested, and I can get a few more of those out compared to the demonetized episodes. I still might do those from now every now and then, but for right now, we are just chilling. So that is what's going on. All right. Holy shit. Tyler, holy God. Thank you, bro. Election prediction. So right now, I am looking at, let me think. So the way it looks right now, I don't see how Trump can really lose. His ground game has been unbelievable. Kamala is struggling with some very key demographics, Latinos, Mexican Americans, whatever you want to call them. African Americans, she's struggling with, surprisingly, especially men. Men in general, she's having a very difficult time maintaining her position. She's polling so much worse than Biden was. Trump is much closer to Kamala in the polls, which is bad news for the Democrats. Biden had a 7-point lead and barely won. Trump and Kamala are basically neck and neck. So that doesn't bode very well. At this point, my personal opinion on this is I think that Trump is going to win. If Trump doesn't win, I am going to have serious issues with our elections. Just because I don't see how she could possibly win. She's probably going to get a good portion of the female vote, but even then, I think she's struggling with females. Females don't traditionally vote for females and, boost each other up. When a guy does something really good, he's our leader, he's our hero, he's a champion, something like that. Girls like to tear each other down in social groups, sort of the way that they go about business. So women don't tend to vote for women generally. It's why I've always said we're probably not going to have a woman president. If Kamala does win, I don't think that the 2016 election was rigged, really. I think that there was some stuff going on, but I think there's some stuff going on in every election. If Kamala wins this one, I just completely lose faith in Americans. Like Trump or not, whatever you think about him, you can totally disagree with his policies and everything. Would you rather have Trump in office or Kamala in office? Would you rather have Trump dealing with Putin or Kamala dealing with Putin? And for me, I don't think she's even going to do anything. So I'm just looking at another 8 years or another 4 years of basically a Biden administration. So I don't want that. It's been pretty horrible. But yeah, that's my take on the election. I think that Trump has done an amazing job. He was in a garbage truck today. Which bravo, way to get on that timing wise. They had it painted. They had a big Trump logo on it already. So yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Tyler. I'm glad you were able to make it in tonight, man. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Optimistic Future. I appreciate that. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into this. Over to the map. We have so many freaking updates to get into. So let's just do it. All right. So starting in the Kursk region, we have a little bit of news. It is being reported that Martinovka here has been captured. So the Russians are closing in on Struzda from the east. Still not a lot happening up here. The Ukrainians are still injecting reserves, trying to keep this open. I think this is Zelensky's hill that he's going to die on. No, hold on. Let me make that a little bigger. This is the hill that Zelensky is going to die on. I don't understand why this is happening still. Even the most pro-Ukrainian, pro-Zelensky, 1991 borders, cheering it on people are coming out. I'm seeing NAFO even coming out and talking about how Zelensky's speech that he gave today was repetitive. It's whiny. It's the same thing over and over again, and it doesn't achieve anything. And I couldn't agree more with NAFO, which is a pretty wild thing for me to say out loud. However, they're actually starting to feel the reality of the situation, which is a horrible sign that the delusional ideologues are the ones that are now starting to say that Ukraine is doing things wrong. And that one of the hot spots is, why is Kursk still happening? Why is this operation still going on? It makes no sense. There's no achievements. Zelensky said today that they could have captured the Kursk NPP, but they chose not to. Bullcrap. You're a liar. So, yeah. So what that tells me is that their goal was to capture the Kursk NPP. So my prediction about this was correct. The only reasonable objective in this entire region was the Kursk NPP, which we can see is up here in Lvov. This area, this is where the NPP is. I think it is actually right here. Yeah, this right here, I think. Somewhere right here. And they were very, very, very far away from ever even getting close to that. So they didn't have the stamina, they didn't have the endurance, whatever you want to call it, to actually achieve that goal. This is what they were left with, and they invested so much and sacrificed so much elsewhere that backing out of this, it's a sunk cost fallacy. So that's the situation in Kursk. I think that the casualties from this operation, total wounded, incapable of coming back to battle, and dead amounts to somewhere in the 20,000 range. Remember, offensive operations are extremely costly. Offensive operations, when you have no air defense and no prepared defenses, is extremely costly. And Ukraine has been dying, or the AFU have been sending men in to die in this salient for months, right? It's been almost 2 months now. Some of the sources, I have two sources. One of them is in this area. He's not a frontline infantry soldier at all. But he says that the guys are saying that the stench is so horrible in this region. Like every tree line has corpses in it, that the Ukrainians aren't able to pull out. A lot of the wounded aren't able to be evac'd, so the casualty rate is much higher with the wounded. It's just a very difficult situation up here. That's the Kursk situation. Still, Ukraine is still struggling to get anything done up here. Kharkov, no changes, just continued fighting. Vovchansk, we've been getting some images talking about how Russia just completely destroyed the city. But as we've seen in other areas, if the Ukrainians don't fight in the cities, the Russians don't destroy them. So, it takes two to tango in there. All right, time for the first real advances. Let me get a sip of water here, and then we'll get into it. Okay. So, Kupiansk. The Russians are now directly on the outskirts of Kupiansk. They have also progressed further down into Petropavlivka and are now extremely close to the main supply route, less than a mile away, so less than 2 kilometers away. This entire pocket out here is about to collapse. That's what we're looking at. That's the realistic situation. And once this collapses, there's almost no point in holding anything on this side of the river. The Ukrainians will back off into this side of the Oskil, and that's where they will sit. This pocket will close. And as we're seeing down here, this pocket is getting tighter and tighter by the day. The Russians have made another advance across the Luhansk-Kharkiv Oblast borderline and are fighting is now being reported in Lazova. So once the Russians capture this, again, it's going to be another pocket that's forming up here. Don't really know how many Ukrainians are in this region. And the Russians are just going to keep pushing down, both sides pushing from the east and pushing from the north, pushing south from the north, all the way down to the Liman area down here. So that's really the overall situation. Not a massive concerted push in this area, not a huge offensive, but the Ukrainians are just getting weaker across the board, weaker. And that's that. You reported my channel, which is hilarious because I'm talking about a map. So goofy. Imagine being so mad about a map, about somebody being right about a map, that you report the channel. Sorry that your bias isn't being confirmed. RIP. Love you. Love you, Jim Smith. Thanks for helping me with my ad revenue. Appreciate it, homie. You a real one. All right. Let's go down here. Let's see. The Russian armed forces have again advanced, this time into the northern edge of Terny. The Ukrainians have been holding this valiantly for a very, very long time. But again, this pocket is about to close along the Zhybiets River here. Once this falls, the Russians will have control over the entire eastern bank of the Zhybiets River, and then operations can begin in the direction of Liman. Remember, if Zakharin right here falls and the Russians are able to move, north at all from the Donetsk Oblast into the Kharkiv Oblast, they will cut off this entire section and either force a massive withdrawal or a encirclement. So that is also on the table. But this area is not going to move titanically fast, most likely. I've said for a long time that I think the Ukrainians should retreat from this bank of the Oskal. It is the one area where they are not achieving any military objectives here in Kursk, and a withdrawal will actually benefit the overall military situation for the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians need to pull back and set up a strong defensive line along the Oskil and then in front of Liman to prevent the Russians from advancing on Slavyansk. The pipe dream of reaching Kremenna died long ago, and now the Russians are pushing back the opposite direction. So the Ukrainians should pull back behind the defensible Oskol line and then reinforce around Liman like the Russians did during the 2022 Kharkov offensive. Same exact thing. It's just the entire situation has flipped for the Ukrainians. All right. Okay. Let's go down to Chasiv Yar. Remember my prediction? I talked about this crossing is getting pushed out quite a bit. The Russians have captured this Terikon right here. I talked about this area, guys. It's in my predictions right here. I'll pop it up. Obviously, not quite as pronounced, but the important area is Stopochki. I said Stopochki, and the reason why I have this so pushed out down here is because once Stopochki falls, the Russians are going to control the high ground that controls this entire side of the canal here. So once this area is captured by the Russians, expect another blossom out from this region. I'm actually going to take us over to the topographical map just to show you guys what's going on. I hope everybody's doing good. I know these late streams are a little bit different, but I hope everybody's chilling big time in here. Let's go over to the topographical map. All right. Bakhmut, Chasiv Yar, and here is Stopochki, and you can see that the Russians have crossed and have captured this hill right here, this area right here, which you can see is a very pronounced high ground, but they want to get down and capture this high ground right here. Once this high ground right here is captured, they will be able to control this entire area leading up to Toretsk. Again, they're going to want to push out along this high ground as well to the north of Konstantinivka. Guys, remember, if you ever want to know where the Russians are going, just follow the topographical map. You will see the Russians follow a couple of directions here. First off, they will follow the canal along the high ground here all the way up. They will push out, once they capture Chasiv Yar, they will push out west of Chasiv Yar along this railroad right here and high ground. And as well, they will come down and capture this southern area around Stopochki, where they will be able to cut off supply to Toretsk and apply pressure to Konstantinivka. So the topographical situation for the Ukrainians is, again, worsening day by day. The situation is getting much worse, and it will lead to some difficult decisions here in the near future. All right. Who are you talking about? Troll confirmed 100%. Are you talking about Jim Smith? Because Jim Smith is an idiot, and you can just ignore that person. That is the way that goes. All right. Back to the old map. Okay, so remember, that's this hill right here. This sort of forested area. This is the high ground that the Russians want to capture most importantly. And then also this area right here north of Konstantinivka is also on a high ground. Chasiv Yar is just a hill. Chasiv Yar is just sitting on a hill, basically. Okay, no updates for Toretsk. The Ukrainians have done a counterattack in this region. Again, I think a majority of this is just gray zone, so I'm just not going to change my map right now. I have backed it off a little bit from the Terikons, which I think is the reason why they were able to launch a successful counterattack in this area. You see that the Russians really don't have any strong positions to hold in this area, and so they were pushed back to sort of this area back here. But we don't know where the lines are. It was mostly gray zone, and I don't have any faith that the Ukrainians are actually able to hold anything that they push out from. So just consider this area gray zone for right now. And I'm going to update the map as soon as I get a solid idea of where the lines are. Most mappers have it kind of like in the midway point. I'm just not going to change it right now because I don't actually know. All right. Now over to Seladove. Obviously, the Russians have already captured Seladove entirely, but now they have already begun to progress west of Seladove, and this is exactly what I talked about. Remember, Andrivka is the ultimate goal here. It's not a big town. It's just connected with roads. It is like sort of where all the logistics are coming through for this entire southern front now. So the overall goal for the Russian armed forces is to push down from the north and push up from the south to reach Andriivka. The Ukrainian goal should be to stabilize this line any way possible and prevent the Russians from completely collapsing what is now a pocket that is forming here. The entire southern front has really just changed shape. The overall dynamics of the battle are changing rapidly. And we are beginning to move into more of a maneuver warfare style down here in the south after this initial breakthrough near Zolota Navia. So things are happening very, very quick. But just over here, just a small advance through these fields here after the capture of Veshene. Like I said, just a small push out. But the goal is to push into Novoselivka and then Yorivka and then Pushnika. And just sort of kind of island hop through these villages all the way to the rear of Pokrovsk, really start to put some pressure on the city of Pokrovsk and Minhorod, and eventually force a Ukrainian withdrawal. I don't think that the Russians are necessarily going to want to fight through these cities. Just because of how weak the Ukrainians are now, it's not going to be necessary to get them into another grinder of sorts. The goal from the Russians, they did this with Saladove, they did this with some other cities, is really just to encircle and then force the Ukrainians to withdraw. The amount of attrition that Russia can put on those retreating troops is much higher. And the Russians know, just as I've been saying for months, that every consecutive line behind the current line that the Ukrainians are sitting on gets weaker and weaker and weaker and less developed and just poorer, right? They're not installing concrete bunkers with their trench lines. So it's going to take it takes a long time to build fortifications. The Surovikin line took almost a year to build. The Ukrainians don't have the manpower. They don't have the equipment. They don't have the funding. They don't have the time. So these lines that the Ukrainians are now falling back on, especially out here, I mean, they're almost non-existent for the Ukrainians. And they're just kind of sitting in foxholes and tree lines and stuff now. And they're not reinforced. So even if you run into a fortification, you just slam it with glide bombs, you slam it with artillery, and it's dirt. They're dirt walls. They collapse, they fall in. And once a trench network is, thoroughly processed, an assault can take place and you will see success, which we'll talk about here in just a second. The Russian armed forces have also moved into Novodermitivka, and have captured half of the village. Again, this is important because it allows further access to this road. This road can lead to Andriivka, or this road can lead to the south of Kharkov, which will, again, force an encirclement of the city and a withdrawal by the Ukrainian armed forces. Just to the east, the Russian armed forces have pushed out from the poultry farm right here and have kind of gotten to the backside of Kremena Balka. I expect that this area is gray zone now, and the Ukrainians are holding sort of like a half circle right here, trying to prevent the Russians from pushing out of this pocket, which, by the way, has just closed. Moving over here to the Kharkivka pocket, the Russian armed forces, just recently in my most recent live stream, we talked about how Kharkiv had completely collapsed, and not very much longer after that, the town of Kharkivka collapsed. This fortification was abandoned. Vovchenka was also left once the Russians captured this processing plant and Telecons, industrial waste heaps, basically. Artificial high ground. The Russians captured this. There's absolutely no point in the Ukrainians sitting here. The withdrawal is a good idea. A cleansing operation, or whatever you want to call it, a cleaning is happening now, looking for stragglers and just cleaning up this area. So probably don't expect a ton of movement west from here just for right now. This is going to take 1 to 2 days to consolidate. Once it's consolidated, the Russians will begin pushing along the northern end of this reservoir, as well from the north, trying to, again, create another sort of pocket here. Not a ton of area for the Ukrainians to sit and defend, but they will still try to defend, because if the Russians get back here to Stary Terny, Kharkov will be cut off from supply. If Kharkov is cut off from supply, it will be a matter of days before it falls. And as you can see, Kharkov is one of the areas with large fortifications. All of these tree lines here are interconnected with trench lines. Even though you can't see them, they do exist. But some pretty serious defensive fortifications. And the city is just kind of built well for a long defense. Lots of industrial zones, lots of high-rise buildings, and a major industrial zone back here, something akin to the sort of like the plant in Avdiivka. If you guys remember, there was the plant in the northern side of Avdiivka. Look how far back this is. Holy crap. This was only in February, but same sort of size as this plant right here. Okay. This is bad news for the Ukrainians. The fact that the Russians are already forcing their way to the north of Kharkov is a very, very, very bad sign. This is just not going to end well. This is not going to play out. The Russians need to get back in here. The Ukrainians need to defend this area before the Russians get back in here and cut off supply. Kharkov, if Kharkov falls, the entire south is just going to collapse all the way, like we talked about. Let me see if I have a layer here. Yeah. So this entire southern pocket is going to collapse here, and the Ukrainians will be defending from this area, which is a much worse defensive line, as we just talked about. And if this is compromised, if Andriivka is compromised, there's nothing to defend down here. They're just going to wrap up, get behind Pokrovsk, wrap up Pokrovsk and Minhorod, and then wrap up behind Konstantinivka, wrap up behind Kramatorsk, Slavansk, and this is going to happen much, much quicker than anybody expects. I know when I talk about this stuff, it seems like it could take days or weeks, but just since my last update, guys, the Russians have advanced 41 square miles in this little area, right? That's crazy. That's something that we have never seen in this war. This is a legitimate breakthrough. They have taken 1, 2, 3, 4 villages across a very wide area in about 3 or 4 days, right? So this is an incredible increase in speed, and it's just going to get worse and worse as the Ukrainian lines deteriorate and as Ukrainian morale continues to drop, get worse. The situation is just not pleasant right now, and I talked about this. We are on I think we're on day 64 of I've been calling it a collapse. And in the last 64 days, the Ukrainians have lost. I mean, if you guys remember, it was like Novohordivka was lost. Ukrainsk was lost right here. Seladove has been captured. Hrinki has been captured. Kharkivka has been captured. Ugledar was captured. Varyan. All of this entire area right here, if you go look at my thumbnail, all that yellow zone has been captured in the last 2 months. I mean, this is the collapse. This is what I've been talking about. This is this is unbelievable for the way that the Ukrainians are choosing to fight this war. This should not be happening at all. This is a horrible sign, and there is a very, very good reason why Zelensky does not want to let Kursk go. Because he's already sacrificed the East. He already made the decision. I said that when this Kursk operation happened. I said, oh, they've given up on the East. There's no reason to hold the East anymore if you're going to commit in another direction like this. It's a battle of the bulge, right? You're getting absolutely curb stomped in the West or in the East. So you turn your focus to the West and try to make something happen over there. And it's just not going the way that they had hoped at all. So that's kind of the situation. Oh, also, we haven't seen any North Koreans fighting yet, so still waiting for that to happen. If no North Koreans end up showing up, I will be the biggest winner ever in that argument. I've been saying the whole time, I'm just like waiting for proof. I need proof. I don't want to trust me, bro. Iranian missiles were supposed to be being launched by Russia at Ukrainian civilians. Hasn't happened yet. Still waiting for that. Russia got sanctioned for it. Iran got sanctioned for it. And now North Korea is apparently sending troops, but nobody has seen them. I don't know what's happening with them. If we end up seeing them on the battlefield, they will likely be in the Kursk region. But again, no proof yet. So we're just waiting. Yeah, South Koreans need to go to Ukraine. Yeah, sure, because that makes sense. I love you, Jim. You're like a fountain of bad ideas. It's awesome. You are you antithesis. You are like the antithesis of me in your horrible predictions and hot takes. And it's such a nice compliment having you in here that I can just throw something stupid up that you say and make it a teaching lesson for everybody else who actually has the capability of learning. All right. That is it for the updates, guys. But yeah, this southern area is just, it's just ripe for a collapse. Like it already is collapsing, but I mean a major retreat by the Ukrainians from Kharkov back over here to try to defend something. There are rumors, and this is just rumors. Don't go ahead and take this serious. That Russia is preparing 8 new brigades, and that is going to be designed for a push on Plovdiv right here. So that would mean that the Russian war aims are much more dramatic than we talked about. And part of it was it was supposedly a message from MI6, British intelligence, that he needs to pull out of the Kursk region and prepare more down here because of the coming Russian offensive. And I talked about this, right? I said Velika Novosilka, Holyai Polye, and Orikhiv. If the Russians can capture one of those, this entire southern defense just kind of crumbles, right? They'll gain access to the roads. They'll start branching out. They'll get behind all of this. And what you're seeing over here around Ukraine will happen here. It will happen here. It will happen down here. And then the entire battlefield just opens wide up, right? It just is going to rip open. And the Russians will be able to begin maneuvering. The Ukrainians will be unable to stabilize. Their lines will be completely compromised. And then the Russians will be able to push wherever they want to push. And I do believe that that is coming in the winter. I don't think that the Ukrainians have much time left. They've been holding everything as hard as they can. They're not retreating anywhere. We saw them get encircled in Ugledar. We saw them get encircled in Hrinki. We've seen them get encircled multiple times. They're still not retreating. They're trying to hold on to everything. And I think they're trying to do it before, like holding it until the election. And they're still not able to do it. I mean, shit is crumbling. Like this, I don't know how I can explain it to you. I know it just looks like lines on a map, but this advance right here, it compromises the entire southern flank. And if the entire southern flank is collapsed, not only are you going to be worried about this entire new area that is just completely undefended, but you're also worrying about Pokrovsk falling, the Russians getting access to Pokrovsk, advancing up to Plovdiv, advancing over here to Kramatorsk, compromising your entire defense over here. Things are going to start moving very quickly. And if there is not a negotiated settlement or a capitulation of some kind by the Ukrainians, which I would suspect would just be leaving the 4 oblasts and just hoping that the Russians are just okay with that. I don't think that that's the deal on the table anymore. I think the Russians are going to achieve their goals militarily, and that's sort of the end of it. They've sort of said this out loud. I think that's the direction that the Russians are going, and I can't really blame them because I would not make a deal with the West at all right now. We lied about Minsk. We lied about NATO expansion. We lied about Minsk 1. We lied about Minsk 2. We overthrew the government in Ukraine. We tried to do the same thing in Georgia. We're trying to do the same thing in Georgia as we speak. We're trying to get another soft coup going on in there, which good for Georgia for standing up for themselves and being pragmatic. They're still pro-Western, so I don't know what this whole Russia election interference nonsense is. It's crap. The election was very tight, and the Dream Party or whatever won, and they're slightly more pragmatic. So I think that is a win for Ukraine. I love you too, B Games. I love you too, brother. All right. Any plans to get to Transnistria and Odessa? I've said this the entire time, guys. You're probably not going to see battles for places like Kharkov, Odessa, Nikolaev, Kherson. All of that probably will just come either when there's no Ukrainian army standing in the way through peace negotiations, or that might never actually be captured by Russia. Russia might keep that open as some sort of, extension to the West. Like, hey, look, we're trying to make this work. I don't know. At this point, I would just say finish the job. Just finish the job. Put America in its place, and then they'll start respecting you and treating you properly. That's sort of how we, have an understanding. MT, thank you for your question, man. The Bandarians, aka Denny's last video, appear to be starting to oppose Zelensky. Do you think there's a possibility of a coup in the works? 2 years ago, I would say absolutely. Their leader, Zelensky, has been sent to London. So no, he was like the sort of the right sector, all the groups, Azov, Adar, C-14, all of the different groups. He was kind of their guy. If you see the pictures, he's always posing with the brigade commanders, and he has a picture of Stefan Bandera up in his office and everything. He was removed for that exact reason. I think that he was more popular than Zelensky, and Zelensky was about to experience some political upheaval. He's been removed. Also, a lot of the Azov, Adar, they're not really around anymore. They've been attrited so heavily. I think that the ideology is been damaged severely. I think morale is extremely low, and that they're just not healthy groups anymore in Ukraine. So I would not expect a coup. Zelensky is very consolidated in his position. The only way he gets removed is if the West wants him to be removed at this point, right? He's protected by U.S. intelligence and British intelligence. A coup only really happens when you have a side eagerly supporting that coup. And that's usually either, Russia in some countries or the United States in other countries, overthrowing democracies and installing dictatorships all over the world. That's sort of like what needs to happen. So the only way you're going to see a coup is if the U.S. wants it, or if Russia somehow gets in there and is like, hey, if you take over, we'll stop this war and you'll get a good deal. I don't know. I don't think any of that's going to happen. I think that this is going to be a continuation, a long continued war. The Russian economy needs the war right now, so I don't expect it to end for that reason as well. And yeah, no, I don't see any chance of Zelensky getting out until the West wants him out. And if that happens, who knows? Who knows who gets put in? Who is recalibrated? I don't know. Okay. All right. I hope everybody is having a good time. Oh, wow. We are 37 minutes in already. If you guys want to start throwing up questions, I'm going to just talk for a little bit. Nothing has really changed with the Israel-Gaza situation. The Ukrainians are looking at the Israelis are talking about their objectives being achieved in southern Lebanon. That's a lie. They have not achieved a single objective. They've been getting their asses handed to them. There is no point in going in. So kudos to them for avoiding the mistakes that the Ukrainians seem to find themselves in, where they refuse to retreat, they overinvest, they double down, and then they can't leave. The Israelis basically said this operation is not going to work. We need to pull out. I think Washington's trying to negotiate very, very hard with Hezbollah to get hostilities to end in the north, because Israel is just losing that fight. They're not going to win that fight. And that's really starting to become very detrimental to the Israeli economy and just the situation. But I do believe that Netanyahu is still looking for a war. I think he's going to try to get into a war with Iran and force the US's hand, and then they can handle Hezbollah and all that together. I think that that's sort of the idea. Iran is still talking about retaliating. They're saying that U.S. intelligence is saying that it's going to come before the U.S. election. So there's your October surprise, maybe. Who knows? I again don't think that Iran should retaliate. I think that if they called it good right now, they would be in a dominant position in the region. Hezbollah survived. Hamas is still going, although Iran and Hamas are not connected. The Palestinian cause is still there. The Houthis are doing great down where they're at. I mean, they're still controlling the Red Sea. So there's a lot of issues that the West is dealing with right now. And, primarily Netanyahu cannot end the war, because then they're going to have elections, and he's going to not win those elections most likely. If it goes that way. Right now, he's kind of popular because he's been killing the enemy. There's been some high level assassinations. The leader of Hamas was killed sort of heroically, which was I don't know why the IDF posted that, but whatever. But yeah, so that's sort of the situation with the Middle East. We're just kind of waiting. We're seeing who's going to do what. Israel is also talking about preemptively striking Iran. So I just think that both sides are not backing down. And one side definitely wants a war. And I think it's probably going to happen. And I think that Trump getting in is kind of going to reaffirm that for them. I hope that's not the case. I hope Trump gets in and he's able to calm everything down and just prevent a war. But I have very little hope. Do you think winter will slow down the Russians, allowing the Ukrainians to fortify Zaporizhia region and northern Donbass? Absolutely not. Thank you for another question, MT. Absolutely not. Winter is usually when the Russians begin accelerating. Weather conditions get rough for a defender who's sitting in the Ukrainians aren't rotating. See, this is the thing about the Russians is the Russians could potentially, I don't want to say they absolutely could, but the Russians have so many men in the SMO zone. If they committed right now, they could probably end the war. Higher casualties, no real purpose in doing that right now. Like I said, the economy needs the war, and they're winning and they're bleeding the West. The West is trying to decide if they're going to help Israel or Ukraine, and it's a bad look. Everything's collapsing. Europe is still hurting because of the Ukraine war. From a geostrategic position, Russia now wants the war to continue. As long as their economy can hold on, as long as the domestic situation is fine, why stop the bleeding, right? Of the West. And as I said, there are around 700,000 Russian troops committed to the SMO. That doesn't mean they're all in Ukraine. There's logistics personnel. There are frontline soldiers. There are frontline soldiers that are rotated to the rear, and then there are soldiers that are on leave back in Russia. And these soldiers are constantly being rotated. The units are being rotated, rested, refitted, thrown back into combat. They are. It is very tenable losses, right? They are able to replace everything that's being lost right now, and as the winter approaches, the manpower situation is only going to worsen, right? It's not getting better. And the weather is always detrimental to the side, first off, defending, the side that has less ability, just like capabilities overall, and the side that struggles more with logistics, which is definitely the Ukrainians. So no, I think that the winter is going to accelerate all of this, and we will see probably some of the greatest progress through December, January, and February while the ground is hard. Good question. When a man openly is telling today that he asked for his long-range missiles to hit Russia secretly, but his house is still standing. Oh, well, I think it's very clear that they're not going to get permission to use long-range strike weapons in Russia. If they would have done it, they would have already. If they were going to do it, they would have already done it. I don't see that being a possibility. Russia has made it very clear that will directly implicate the United States in the war, and they will retaliate against the United States. I think that this has been a message that has basically come over that nuclear telephone, and they said, hey, listen, if you do this, you're party to it, and we are going to react in some way towards you specifically. And that's why they shut it down immediately. They haven't been talking about it. Ukraine isn't even in the news anymore. So, I mean, it's just, I don't think that that's going to happen. And striking his house, I mean, what does that achieve for you other than saying, oh, look, Putin is trying to assassinate Zelensky, this, that, or the other. It's just, don't give them propaganda. They're already suffocating. They're already drowning. Their heads below water. Just leave them, right? That's sort of the implication there, I would say. Optimistic Future. EP, thank you for your super sticker, brother. Messed up earlier. Do you think if Kamala... Oh, sorry that you messed up, brother. I can refund that for you. I'll do that after. Messed up earlier. Do you think if Kamala... is elected, it would be a continuation of the Biden Ukraine policy. Not going to even, I don't even know if she really cares about Ukraine. That's just going to be pushed off to the side to her Secretary of Defense or, whatever. That's her cabinet, and her cabinet is just going to be the Biden administration. Maybe a few changes here and there, but nothing major. Yep. She is a puppet. Let me think. I think that after the election, you're going to see, if Kamala wins, I think her position on a lot of things are going to change. I think she's saying a lot of stuff right now just to get elected, trying to be much more middle ground. I think she's far more left than she puts on, and I think that she's far more she's going to be far more hands off than Biden is with some of this stuff, and Biden's immediate administration. So the people closest to him, Blinken and those types. I think Kamala is a little bit more hands off. So if she's got neocons in her cabinet or, neolibs, whatever, they're going to be running the foreign policy. And that scares me a lot. That's why I don't think Kamala's right for the United States right now. Number of reasons I don't, but Kalibrated. It seems like the Russians are aiming to push north of Andriivka instead of west to Velika Novosilka. It's just more that, let's go over to the map. It's more or less that Velika Novosilka is just more easily defended at the position it's at, and moving up this road is kind of difficult for the Russians. But no, I mean, they're pushing north right now because the goal is not to capture Zaporizhia. The goal is not to capture Pulverhad, right? That's not the goal right now. This area right here is where a majority of the Ukrainian army is. Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, Druskivka, Konstantinivka, right here, right? If they can collapse the south, like I always said, Izum right here, it was very important because it's all these roads, and it basically allows the Russians to come back behind Slavyansk. Pokrovsk is the exact same thing. Pokrovsk leads up to Dobropila right here, which is just where the road goes through. Not that this is very important, but that leads to Kramatorsk, Druskivka from behind. If they can collapse the south, they'll collapse Pokrovsk, they'll collapse Torets, Konstantinivka, they'll collapse Slavyansk. And then after that's gone, there's no point in holding any of this, and this will all just collapse the same way. So that's sort of where we're at. That's what's happening. And the goal is to remove all of these strong defenses and destroy the Ukrainian army here where Russian logistics is the shortest, so that when you begin to push out into this open area, you can do so very quick with very little resistance and capture a bunch of territory. This is what attrition war does. Your enemy, if you have a weaker enemy that cannot maintain supply, cannot maintain manpower, if you wear them down, you'll just continue to wear them down, and then they'll be looking like the German army. They'll start losing battles all over the place, like we're seeing right now, losing in Sadov, losing in Hrinki, losing on the Vovocha line, losing, getting like everything lost up to Pokrovsk, losing the Oskal River line. Like all of this is the battles that were leading up to, the final collapse back to Berlin, if you want to make a German reference or, World War II reference. What you're seeing right here is like the battles in Poland and Czechoslovakia. That's sort of the we're past Kursk. The Ukrainian army is never going to be strong. They're not getting stronger. They're not seeing replacements of equipment and stuff like that. So, I don't expect the pushes to come over here until like wintertime. Because this is far, far more valuable for the Russians. This area right here is far more valuable than any of this. All of this will come in time for the Russians. All of this will come in time. This is the hard part. This is the thorn in the side. This is the sticker in your shoe, right? This is what you don't want to have to deal with. Once this is gone, there's nowhere to defend. There's nowhere to hold. There's nowhere to run logistics from. The Russians are just going to flood through if they so wish to. All right, guys. Okay. If you guys have any more questions, go ahead and throw them up. I have We're at 49 minutes. I'll probably go to an hour tonight. So if you guys have more questions, I have one article that I just wanted to talk about. Sort of a, it's from The Hill. Bipartisan House members push Biden to allow Poland to shoot down Russian missiles over Ukraine. So I thought this was very weird because it really, first off, they put a picture of an MLRS firing, which it's not even, it's like a technical on the back of a Toyota. And that sums up the Ukrainian war effort right there. But so it's not even air defense. Don't know why they really put that picture. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Poland shooting down Russian missiles. I don't remember the last time a Russian missile even went close to the Polish border. Can you guys? Like, when was the last strategic air campaign against Ukraine? It was months ago, right? So I don't even know what this conversation is about. I don't know if they're expecting the Russians to begin another infrastructure campaign. I hear there's some backroom deals going on. Peskov has come out and said that there is no backroom deals about not striking Ukrainian energy infrastructure. I don't know why the Russians aren't just doing it. Maybe it's because they have intel that they know that the war's going their way so heavily, and they know that they don't have to make themselves look worse by attacking civilians. Smart move if that's the case. I don't know. But I just thought this was very weird. A weird cope, a weird thing to chase. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So let Poland shoot down Russian missiles. All none of them that are flying near the Polish border. I don't know. This to me, what this seems like is the initial steps in creating the ability for NATO troops to be activated in Ukraine potentially. Although I don't think that any leadership in Europe or Washington wants that in the slightest. So again, this is sort of the neocons pushing out ideas and seeing how everybody reacts to them. But they've been talking about this for years. Calibrated. Don't you think the second Poland shoots down Russian missiles, it green lights Russian? Yes, but let's be realistic. If Poland shoots down a Caliber cruise missile or a X-101 or KH-101, somewhere over Ukraine, is it worth it for the Russians to strike Poland? I mean, that's crazy. You're going to trigger Article 5 because they shot down a missile heading for a target in Lvov. I mean, they could. They would have the legal precedent to do so. Are they going to? No. That doesn't make any sense. They don't want a war. They don't want a wider war. They're winning right now. The equation is working in their favor. Just keep doing what you're doing. If it isn't broken, don't fix it. Right. Much love, brother. Thanks for doing 9 p.m. live streams, U.S. Eastern Time, 1 week away from elections. Any thoughts? Yeah. Trump killed these last 3 weeks. Kamala ate shit. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know how she hasn't gotten just a little bit better at answering questions. It's not hard. It's really not hard. And she should be a very capable human being, being while being the DA, while being a prosecutor, while being a congresswoman or a senator. I think she's congresswoman for California, right? Or was she the governor of California? I can't remember. She wasn't the governor, I don't think. She was the DA, and then she became a congresswoman, I think, for California, and then she became a vice president. That administration was one of the worst administrations we've ever seen. I don't know why they chose her. They could have just chose a different white guy and they would have done so much better. I don't know why they thought that a woman of color was going to be, maybe they thought that they were just going to ride that sort of woke wave in. But it just didn't pay off. It didn't pay off specifically with African Americans. One of their strongest groups. I've heard pretty nasty things about her, sort of, putting on whatever face she needs to put on. So she's Southern Baptist in front of the Southern crowds, even though she's from California. Like, where does that accent come from? In my secondary Telegram channel, the Calibrated Side Quests, I posted a TikTok of her doing another accent, and she's like a preacher, a Southern Baptist preacher. I'm like, what is this? When is she ever talking like this? It's so weird. I don't know. She's miserable. The reason why I said I would be concerned about the elections is because she's so unlikable. She's like a cackling Hillary Clinton, which is just unbelievable. You'd think that somebody who'd been in politics their entire life would be somewhat personable, but she just hackles and is just unlikable. And it is sort of a popularity contest, really. If people don't like the way you look, it can be really bad. One example I always talk about is Kennedy and Nixon debating. I think it was Kennedy and Nixon. Back then in the 60s, 60s, you had the cameras were really bad, and you put on this ridiculous like clown makeup. It was like yellow to give you color. It was like a Trump tan basically. And Nixon didn't want to do it. And Nixon looked really sick on the screen, and Kennedy looked really young and good. And that was sort of the pushover in that whole campaign, where everybody was like, oh, Kennedy's like young and with it and looks good, and Nixon almost looks like he's about to die. So that's sort of, a lot can come out of these debates, and a lot because Americans sometimes will just go and vote for people that they like, which is wild. The more I hear things, the more I am realizing the West is losing their mind. Russia is not kidding anymore. Russia is ready to fight anybody. Yeah, like I've been saying the entire time, we created the monster we set out to prevent from the very beginning of the conflict. Russia in 2022 was much weaker. Their military was a peacetime military for decades, really. I mean, they had seen some action in Syria, but very little. And like in terms of their overall army composition. And this war has, they didn't have a drone program at all. Now they have one of the best drone programs in the world in terms of their operators, in terms of FPVs, in terms of reconnaissance, in terms of strike UAVs, all of this. They have improved tremendously. I just posted a video on my Twitter and my Telegram. You guys can go see it. The Russians have a new, I don't know if you know what a Goliath is from World War II, like the German Goliath, a little remote controlled tracked vehicle. It's like a little tank, just the chassis though. And it's just loaded with explosives, and they just basically drive it into a trench and detonate it on the Ukrainians. And it's like a bomb being just planted wherever they want it. So the Russian drone game has improved tremendously. Russian field medicine has improved tremendously. The Russian army is now the most experienced and well-trained army in the world, at least for this style of warfare. The Russian army is incredibly strong and growing. The military budget has increased tremendously. Russia is just a real enemy now, and they weren't in 2022, right, for the United States. And I don't mean in a head-on confrontation. I mean, geostrategically, Russia is going to be able to push the envelope much further now with other countries in Central Asia, in the Caucasus, in Eastern Europe, because of how strong and capable they are now. If you like Georgia or Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, just being the closest examples, would be overrun in legitimately 3 days. Because they just wouldn't be able to deal with the drone influx, the deep strike capabilities. The Russians would just be glide bomb striking everything, and those countries would just have to surrender, basically. So, yeah, a whole new enemy created. Maybe it was part of the plan, but I don't think that it was. I think the goal was to destroy the Russian economy and then pull Russia away from China. Vote Trump, don't be dumb. Hey, I'm not here to push political opinions. You vote for whoever you think is the right choice. Vote for who you think is going to most properly benefit and increase your quality of life, right? You've seen 4 years of Trump. You've seen 4 years of Biden, right? Biden-Harris. It's not going to be any different the next 4 years. You choose at what period of time you thought you were better. And take away COVID from the end of Trump's presidency and COVID from the beginning of Biden's presidency. Take that 1 year on the back end and the front end away from both. make your decision. That's what I always say. Imagine the shock and betrayal once it sets into the general public in Ukraine that the West used them as a political pawn all along. Oh man, if only somebody would have been saying that the whole goddamn time, huh? If only somebody would have listened. But no, the stupid American bodybuilder who sells supplements when I was 19 couldn't possibly know anything. I couldn't possibly be staring at a map all day like an autistic kid and understand what is going to happen and do simple math and calculations. No, I'm a mongoloid retard who can't read, apparently, but I was correct about most of the Ukraine war, and I've been correct almost spot on for the past year or so. So, if only somebody would have warned, it could have been prevented, but hey, they're just all going to be saying the stuff that I've been saying for over a year now, right? The West is just using you, using Ukraine. You're a pawn. I'm the most pro-Ukrainian because I want the war to end. I want the Ukrainian state to exist. Anybody who wants 1991 borders is a deluded maniac who could care less about the Ukrainian people. They want to see Russia defeated, which is, again, a pipe dream. I mean, at this point, you're just a lunatic if you think that's even a remote possibility, right? So yeah, that's where I'll leave that. It's going to be exactly like Afghanistan, except it's going to be people that are much more closely culturally similar to us in Europe, and they're going to actually be able to communicate their frustrations about the betrayal online, unlike the ANA and the Afghanis who, don't have Twitter to go on and say, hey, thanks for screwing us over, the United States. But it is what it is. Last one, guys. Want to know if you have finger day at the gym. Also, do you focus on pinky? No, I get that exercise with my girlfriend, so we're good on that one. I do have a forearm day. We got to work out those little forearms. We got to work those little guys out. But no, I do. What I do in the gym, is I'll use like 3 fingers or 2 fingers when I'm doing different workouts. So like sometimes I row with 2 fingers or 3 fingers, or like 4 fingers like this and my thumbs up. And like, yeah, I'll carry weight like this too, because I think that it helps improve your finger strength. So you got the inappropriate, guys. Inappropriate. Knock it off. All right. Thank you all so much. I really do enjoy these late streams. They're awesome. They're fantastic. Every Wednesday, I'm going to be doing this late stream. Hey, I might even throw in another one if they become more popular than this. Thank you all so much. Hey, make sure you guys get out and vote. If you're in America, it is very important. If you get to vote in your country, make sure you get out and vote. If you don't, hey, still get out, go touch some grass. There's a whole world out there, and you are going to really, really regret it if you don't get to enjoy it because something happens in the future, right? Go out and just enjoy the peace while it lasts. Enjoy the calm. Go to a park and just meditate for a second and just relax. Thank you all so much. Have an amazing day and have a very spooky Halloween. Take care and be safe all. Goodbye.